to start chapter 10, and chapter 10 is all about area. So if you want to make yourself a title page, you maybe could draw all the different figures we're going to be taking the area of. We're going to review area of triangles. We're going to review area of parallelograms and trapezoids. And by giving yourself a title page, just lets you know how far back in your notes to go. So let's first of all look at a parallelogram. It's a parallelogram because it has two sets of parallel sides. If I draw the height of the parallelogram from a top vertex perpendicular to the base, and I cut along that height, what shape can I make out of it? Yeah, so it always will make a rectangle. Sometimes it'll make a square. But I also want to talk about this shape. It has 4 right angles. So what shape does that make it? Yeah, it makes it a rectangle. Thank you. If I was going to make one cut in here from corner to corner, what kind of shapes would I make? 2 triangles. Would please turn your book sideways. And we're going to fold it all the way up. Actually, we'll fold it to the margin and trace that top margin. And then also trace the fold. So I'm going to rip from the bottom or from the left and from the top or the right so that I can make a tunnel of overlapping pieces. And when I've made the tunnel, I'm going to fold down. When you unfold that, if you trace on your folds, you've divided the paper, the area of the paper, into 3 columns. And we're going to talk about a rectangle first. All of you can draw a picture of a rectangle. What makes it a rectangle? 4 90-degree angles makes it a rectangle. Yep, B is the base and H is the height. Another word in geometry for height is altitude. And altitude is always a perpendicular line between the base and an opposite vertex. So this is the base, and this is a perpendicular line to an opposite vertex, so that's the height or the altitude. And what's the formula for the area of a rectangle? Base times height. Yeah, you guys remember that. So if I say the base is 10 inches, and the height is 10 inches, what's the area? 100 what? 100 inches squared. Just like x times x makes x squared, inches times inches makes inches squared. The squared shows that we're now, instead of only in 1 dimension, we're in 2 dimensions. Next we're going to talk about a parallelogram. The way we say it is that it has 2 sets of parallel sides, and that's what Shalene meant when he said that too. So here's one set of parallel sides, and we learned to show that with the parallel symbol, and then a second set of parallel sides makes it a parallelogram. And if you pick up vertex and draw a line perpendicular to the opposite side, the line you just drew is the height or the altitude. I'm going to call this side the base because that's what I just drew my altitude to. So remember at the beginning of this I said you can take any parallelogram, cut it along its height, Move the triangle over, and what do you make? Yeah, good job. You make a rectangle. Well, if the formula for a rectangle is base times height, what's the formula for a parallelogram going to be? Exactly. Because it's basically a rearranged rectangle, the formula for a parallelogram is still base times height. It's just sometimes a little bit harder to see what the height is. So if the base was 5 meters and the height was 7 meters, what would the area be? 35, not meters. Meters squared. Yeah, we write meters squared, but we say square meters. And the last one we're going to do here is a triangle. Draw a triangle. And I'm going to call this bottom side from here to here the base, perpendicular to the base and to an opposite vertex. So it's important to have that perpendicular sign, and you can call that the height or the altitude. And we said that you could take any rectangle and make it into 2 triangles. What's the formula for the area of a rectangle? Base times height. Well, if I take a rectangle and I cut it in 2, how do I show that in the formula?
Isn't that half the base times the height?
Yeah, you can say half of the base times the height, or you can say the base times the height. The base times the height literally cut in 2 would be divided by 2. Either way works. Some of you are used to seeing it 1/2 base times height. I like to think about cutting it in 2, so I do base times height divided by 2 like that. You can write it any way you want as long as you show the formula for the area of a rectangle cut in 2, or half of a rectangle. So if the base is 20 centimeters and the height is 10 centimeters, what's the area?
100 centimeters squared.
How much?
100 centimeters squared.
Yeah, good job. 20 times 10 is 200. Divided by 2 is 100. And we say square centimeters. Good job. We write centimeters squared, but we say square centimeters. So today we showed how you could get a parallelogram from a rectangle. We showed how you could get 2 triangles from a rectangle. And we showed how the formulas for area reflect that they both start from a rectangle.